Hello friends, and welcome to yet another session of Nitco Talks. And today promises to be a blockbuster. We have amazing designers who are here with us on the panel, and an even more amazing moderator who's going to make this an absolute blockbuster.
So you think?
Let me do the introductions. First, I'll introduce our eminent moderator. We have Rashmi Uday Singh. Today, I have invited or literally dragged Rashmi as a moderator, who you may know as food critic, columnist, and an author of 40 books. But you may not know that she is an IAS 77 batch, and after working 15 years with the income tax, she resigned as a commissioner of tax. Rashmi has many firsts to her credit: India's first ever city restaurant guide and the world's first vegetarian guide to Paris, to name a couple. She was knighted Chevalier by the French government, the same knighthood given to George Clooney and Audrey Hepburn. Truly impressive.
Good.
And has several World Gourmand Cookbook Awards for her books as well. Having trained with the BBC, she produced, scripted, directed, and presented 52 episodes of Health Today, filmed with Gordon Ramsay for Channel 4 for Netflix. Now, during the lockdown, she is working on the ultimate global vegetarian TV show as well as a 41st book, as well as her 41st book, and attending screenwriting sessions with Baman Irani. Welcome, Rashmi.
Thank you, Vivek, for that long thing.
There are designers here. Rasil Gujral Ansal. Rasil's name is one that is synonymous with a testimony of remarkable design. She founded her workshop in 1986 under the apprenticeship of her father, Satish Gujral, with a vision to sculpt the dream and satiate the desires of the most discerning architects and customers. The lineage of artistic influence resonates in every project with a design philosophy focusing on innovation and sustainability. Her in-house design team revolutionizes innovative exterior and interior architecture that is not only functional but immensely engaging, where inspirational designs are resultant of a true collaboration between a client's or a project's vision and a creative translation of it into rousing architectural marvels. Welcome, Rasi.
Thank you.
Vivek, I want to thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with all these shining, brilliant geniuses from the world of design and architecture. I mean, it's awesome. And of course, you rightly said, you dragged me here kicking and screaming because I'm an oddball compared to all of them, and of course you in the same world. But I have to tell you that I'm here because, firstly, you're a great friend. You've been wonderful, not just to me, but also to my father-in-law. And I found it very difficult to say no to you. You've been a great friend. So guys, let's have a big hand for Vivek Talwar, a genius and a great friend. Yay! And
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Rashmi.
And of course, I'm a perpetual student. I love learning. And I know very little about design, but I've been fascinated by this definition, which our eminent panelists will be able to help expound on and explain a little further, which is that design is not just about the feel and the look of things. It is about looking at the world with an eye to changing it for the future. And that's what these maestros have been doing. And you know what? I and we all are really, really excited, as students almost, at least I am, to learn from all you great guys. And of course, I'm looking for, back to the same subject, food for thought. So thank you very much. And it's a real privilege and honor to be here to learn from all of you. Thank you once again. and as directed by the great Vivek Talwar. So I will do two introductions and he will do two. So I'm going to begin with the king, of course, the king of couture, Tarun Tahiliani, whose fan I have been an admirer for several years and been following all his wonderful razzmatazz work. And my DP, I'll also, in fact, I'm wearing one of his outfits. That was not intentional at all. And it's been there for a long time, my DP. And a big admirer of his, that I am convinced that the world of fashion in India will divide itself up into two parts, ATT and BTT. Before Tarun Tahiliani and after Tarun Tahiliani. He pioneered this absolutely amazing concept of this multi-design designer store on Somme, I think in 1987. My dates are a little hazy. And that's awesome. And of course, he's showcasing Indian fashion, craft, taking it all over the world, which is amazing. And of course, he ignored his water management degree, and I love that. And he's been going into all this. And I'll have to cut that short and come straight to what we are discussing today, which is that Tarun has been in the world of, has been foraying into the world of design and architecture with equal panache and genius. And he's been designing homes, not just homes, but hotels, restaurants in Goa, in Hyderabad. I'm sure he's done many more, which I've not been able to catch up with, and also things for bridal events and amazing stuff. So we're going to request Tarun to come on. Over to you, Maestro. But before that, I think Vivek is going to do another introduction before it comes back to me. Right, Vivek?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alphaz Miller.
Thank you.
Architecture to Alphaz has always represented a satisfying amalgamation of his various interests. He loved to sketch, was interested in science and math. Alphaz established ABM Architects soon after graduating in architecture in 1972. The firm has grown from a 70 square foot two-man office to a 7,000 square foot building in Mumbai. Alphaz's proficient design skills, grounded ethics, and human skills continue to define his self-sufficient firm with exceptional skills to deliver varied projects from concept to finishing. His vast collection of art makes his studio virtually into an art gallery. And he is passionate about his vintage cars. Alphaz, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivek.
And we have, last but definitely not least, the youngest brilliant genius, Saket Sethi. I have been personally following him around all over the world since he started his career in 2004. Saket Sethi has been making transcontinental waves, not just in India, in Italy, in Spain, and everywhere. And it's a bit difficult to relate everything he's done here today, but the most recent, the most fabulous projects he's been focusing on are way ahead of everybody of the time, which is the sustainability projects, Sunco, as he called, that is his brand.
No,
I'm going to read out exactly what Sunco stands for.
It's Suno.
Huh?
Suno.
Sorry?
SUNOO. Suno.
No. Oh, sorry. I've got Sunco here. Okay, Suno.
Yeah,
okay,
but you should also tell everyone how you know me, because I think this introduction is incomplete without that,
No.
right? Are you going to tell them the truth, or should I?
No, nothing. Wait, don't bore people. Okay, wait. So it's a series of eco-responsive projects and a Suno. Sorry, I read it Sunco. Old age. Bad eyesight. Sustainable, unified, nature, optimized objects that has been making waves not just nationally but internationally. And he is the first architect to design India's largest residence with a green roof. And he will tell us all about it in his presentation, and also I won't go into that. He's also designing furniture in Italy, Italian design furniture in Italy. And amazingly, he's been actually the only Indian architect to be hosting 2 shows in 2 international television channels and that is really awesome. And finally, he's the founder of Archaeologics. I don't want to get again things wrong. a collective of designers in Mumbai and Naples. Would you believe that? Naples. Redefining contextual future living from a historical perspective. And he recently spoke in Milan, which I actually heard that whole speech, for Tesla Design, for Milan Design Week, and have also been visiting speaker at Politecnico Milano and the University of Campania. Oh my God. Saket. He has a Bachelor of Architecture from Los Angeles, Digital Design from UC Berkeley, and Interior Design from New York University. And you know what? We are really excited, Saket, to hear and see what you have to present and tell us your stories to your design. And of course, excited to watch each and every one of your maestros. So over to you, Vivek.
Can I just say something before Rashmi hands the baton to you, Vivek?
Sure.
No, you're not allowed.
Yeah, I'm totally allowed.
Come on, of course.
Vivek, over.
There's a little bit of trivia here that everybody needs to know. And it pretty much is that I owe my entire career to Rashmi, because before I started working on my own, Rashmi happened to see some of my sketches and she's like, "What are you doing? You need to be working on your own." "Okay, just wait a minute." And she makes a call and, I go present to who then ends up being my first client. So I started my practice thanks to Rashmi, and I think everybody should know that. So now you can continue.
Totally relevant.
Lovely.
It's totally relevant.
Totally relevant. Okay, next, Vivek.
Our topic for today, as you are aware, is storytelling through design. And for that, I'll ask Alfaz. We go alphabetic order. I'll ask Alfaz to show us some images of some project that they like and the story they crafted. The story he crafted. Thank you.
Thanks, Vivek. Thanks for getting me over. I asked you what we were doing on doing these shows, and you said you were just having fun. So we want to have fun with you. And I just thought I'll tell you some funny stories and not so funny stories. And yesterday when I spoke to you, you said we have some serious fun. So we'll discuss some serious fun, which means there'll be some seriousness about it, but overall it's fun. I want to start my story by telling you that I'm a lean, hungry man, hungry for food and hungry for work through my life. And that's how I built up. Till I met a guy called Dilshan Fernandino. Dilshan Fernandino meets me in Sri Lanka. We are driving a car, and he happened to be Jeffrey Baba's draftsperson. He said he was Jeffrey's hands, and Jeffrey would just tell him to draw out. And he told me a story about Jeffrey, who I admire greatly. And he said, Jeffrey was invited to design a mansion for the Karimji family, a very distinguished family in Mauritius. And he says, "Who are these Karimjis? Why should I design for them? Ask them to write me a letter." So Mrs. Karimji wrote him a poem in English. And then Jeffrey agreed, and that set me thinking, what are we doing? That impressed upon me that we should, work and approach projects in a certain way. And I overdid it. A big project came to us in Bombay, and I just refused. I said, I don't want to do it. I mean, it's not my kind of work. It's not architecture. It's not interior design. It's not art. It's some jugaad. A year later, Mr. K walks into my office with a bottle of white wine and starts discussing this project. And he offered me some wine. I said, I don't drink wine. So he had half the bottle. They said, "You must do it, Alfaz." I said, "I don't want to do it." They said, "No, you must do it." Then I agreed to do it. And at the end of the show, I'll tell you why I did it. This is not, it is, I have just shown it as a small film in slides because it's quite exciting. And I'll share my screen now. I have this little presentation I put together. It's called Parde Ke Piche Kya Hai? It's called Parde Ke Piche Kya Hai because this is one job which friends know that we've done, but nobody knows what's gone behind it or what my firm's or my role was in it. So that's why I've called it Parde Ke Piche Kya Hai. And to make a movie, You need the staff, you need the people who get the credits. This is the team. You have Rafiq on the right, who's now in containment at Dharavi. Most of these people are under containment in Bombay. They don't know the right and left of art. And I put this team together and we started the job. And what was created, you know, this is, there is a man whose concept it is. He's visualized this whole thing, but it's all in his head. So the two drawings which you see now, at 3 levels, it is 3.5 kilometer long. 3.5 kilometer long. When I walk on the various levels, it's 3.5 kilometers. It's got 10,000 pieces of artifacts. It's got 550 artists who worked on it. So this was in Babuji's mind. This whole concept was in Babuji's mind. And I had to work with him. And we developed a sort of a love-hate relationship as we went along. But finally, the job got done.
Wow.
This is it. This is totems at the bottom, Suresh Muthakulam on the top. And Suresh did this work on site. He had dengue twice while he was working on the site. And these are all totem poles down, which were all restored by us. So 1,000 pieces of stuff restored and 500 artists. This is in the terminal T2 at Mumbai. This is the close-up with the Kuris. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen this, but what you've not seen is what went behind it. This is Parde ke Piche. This is Parde ke Piche. Look at this, architects. Every Kodi has been engineered. Everything has been engineered to execute. These are the detailed drawings. So you have a visionary on one side who's got it all in his mind. You've got stuff lying on the ground, and you've got an infrastructure contractor on the other side who doesn't know the A or T of the art, and he wants it engineered. So people ask me, why did you do this? What is your role? I said, I engineered the art. I engineered the art. This is another 2-ton sculpture. Babuji would say, Alfaz, I want it here. I said, Babuji, there is glass on the roof. I can't give it to you here. Beta, nahi chalega. Karo isko. So Alfaz had to hang a 2-ton sculpture from the glass. This is Nataraj's work. This is how it looks when it's hung. These are the detailed drawings. These are all archivable material of how this thing was done.
Wow.
These are the drawings. And these have been vetted by an infrastructure company, the largest in India, L&T. And L&T don't know anything about art. Once a guy asked me, can you certify the structural stability of a canvas painting? That is L&T's knowledge of art. This is another one at the bus gate. Again, 500 odd pieces. This is how to understand and to make workmen understand. These are the drawings which are done. These are the details. This is earth. This is earth. This is the installation, it's elements. So this is earth. And it's got, that door is about 1200 kgs. And this is the work in construction. You've seen the images of the complete one. We took another site nearby, the terminal, and most of these things were put up full scale, cut, dismantled, and taken in. This is the earth.
Wow.
Rafiq was the project manager of this installation. And we have many stories to sell. And we tried our best to tell Babuji, Babuji, we can get this effect in plaster of Paris. Babuji said, no, I want gobar. I want cow dung. And the guy said, you can't get cow dung into the terminal, it's getting over, we've carpeted. He said, no, I want cow dung. And I want those ladies to come and put the cow dung. So then he said, how shall we make the security passes? The ladies can't come in. So Rafiq turned around and said, sir, जाने दो ना. वो जब तक lady आके ऐसा नहीं करेगी, वो नहीं होगा. So we finally we put the people together and this got done. These are again various other installations, fairly complex. And each one, every piece was identified, RFID, restored. It's one of a kind in the world. this is how the drawings were made. I'm sure there are a lot of architects looking at the show, and they should see what's happening with this. Yeah, this is another interesting installation. It's India Moves. This is 2.5-inch thick stone going 17 meters high, which is like a 5-storied building. And Babuji, I told Babuji, sir, let's change the location. Niche expansion joint hai. The building will give way. Babuji said no. Mujhe to yahi chahiye. So this was done 17 meters high with about 40 tons of weight. This is the site under construction. I remember I wore this jacket because National Geographic was doing an interview with me on site. And they asked me a plain question, Mr. Miller, why are you doing this? I turned down and said, I'm doing it for the money. They paid me a bomb to do this, but we really enjoyed it along the way. These are some of the drawings which are made for that stonework. The one on the left is a water installation, Shekhar Kapoor's concept. You know, you sort of put your hand under the water and it goes sare gama. Again, huge amount of work in it. This is by a small artist I got in Bombay called Akshay. This whole installation is done with computer chips, transistor chips, the one on the blue. This is Charmi Shah. Her work came from somewhere totally broken, so it was installed here. This was one we did ourselves. This is fiberglass, which looks like stone. And I want to now tell you something about Babuji. Babuji is India's most prolific, brilliant art curator, designer, thinker, writer. I got to know Babuji along the way. We got along sometimes, we had fights sometimes. We hugged each other, but we never looked each other in the eye. And we had this sort of relationship, but it worked and we delivered. And that's Mr. Rajiv Sethi. So the creative intent of what I've shown you is Rajiv Sethi. I satisfy myself by saying that I participated in a project like this and we engineered the art. This is the engineering of art rather than the art of engineering. That's it. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Really, really awesome. That's really awesome. Thank you, Alfaz. That was amazing. You know, I actually went for the inauguration of the airport with Rajiv Sethi explaining everything. And I was totally blown off my mind. I didn't know. Parde ke piche, I didn't know.
I was parde ke piche.
Yeah, but I actually went around in buggies. You know, when they had the inaugural.
Yes.
And I actually did a lot of videos which I posted on my social media, and everybody was completely blown. And I still think our airport is the world's best. And I think it has a lot to do with your parde ke piche and parde ke aage. It was really excellent. Any questions from anyone? Any questions?
It's amazing. I didn't have any idea. Alfaz, thank you. That was fantastic. It is spectacular. Every time I walk through, I'm blown away. And I keep going back to see different things again and again, but I look at it with a different eye. Maybe catch you one day at the airport.
Sure. My pleasure.
Absolutely fantastic.
Really is fantastic. Absolutely. I didn't even know, so I'm still taking it all in. Maybe at the end of this.
The drawings which were made to execute that can make a book, and which somebody is going to do now. You know, there's so much of work done behind, and it's what I'm telling you. It's not architecture. You know, Saket. It's not architecture. It's not interior design. It is sense and jugaad. I mean, jugaad, to put it together, you know, to put it together.
I think it does. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think it's a great job, and whether it's architecture or art or a mix, I think you've done a fantastic job. So really, it's something to mark your career with. Very impressive.
Thanks.
Fabulous.
Alfaz is, I need time to take it in because it's such a sort of cross-section of talent that engineered together here. And it's going to take time to synthesize it.
Yes, it's amazing.
Well, I have to say, I always wondered when I went through the airport, because obviously I collected thousands and thousands of objects, artifacts, how they even conceptualize now to see that they made actually such a superb detailed drawing to put it up. Wow. I'm going to look at it with a new eye. fresh
And
ideas.
you know, a lot of things, Tarun, were done with mock-ups, life-size mock-ups. We had a studio which was like an industrial shed, 30
Right.
meters high. We put up things full scale because half of it was over when the only 50% was done by the time the terminal got over. And here you had Mr. Manwani, if you don't get out, I'll throw you out. So it was done finally under a lot of pressure.
I think we have to get Sanjay ready on here so that he can talk.
Yeah.
Last question from me,
I'd
Alpha.
like to follow for the new airport he's building.
Yes.
Have you ever thought of doing a museum or something?
There is a museum shop was done. Jai Hai Museum store was designed by my daughter Anna. So that's on. But at some point of time, there is space there. And when things improve, there'll be a museum, I think. There'll be a museum because there's such a story to tell behind this, you know. There's a huge story.
But for me, it's the most amazing museum in Bombay. I mean, where can you go?
Indeed.
There's nothing like it.
Absolutely. And Sanjay, credit to Sanjay, who is very focused and just stood by Rajiv and us, put this team together. And then finally, when it was done, I remember Rajiv was not there and we walked through it and we all got emotional. And Sanjay said, you know, I know nothing is impossible, but to put this thing together again is going to be very, very difficult. Very difficult, you know.
Yeah.
We used to walk about 10 kilometers in the airport every day, and it's a construction site, and we had, you know, a whole lot of issues, but got done finally. The result matters.
So it's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thanks.
We can move on now.
Vivek, ask your question.
I think we'll move on now to Rasil and see her presentation. And we can come back to questions from us.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
So Vivek.
Yep.
Hello.
Yes.
So I'm not going to talk through the presentation. I'll just be very brief before you put it on. And I mean, what engaged me with what you had to say was about storytelling. And there is, coming from a family which is a crucible of art with my father, Mr. Satish Gujral, what in me has always been a theme is what Van Gogh said. He said, you know, I dream and then I paint the dream. So even before it became a catchphrase, which it is today, the storytelling bit, whether it is fashion, whether it is architecture, whether it is home, I've always told a story. And what is the process of the story is to hear everything that a client has to say. And that in itself, once it enters you, you generate a dream. And the dream guides the process, you know. So the dream guides what the project should look like. And then the project itself dictates what it needs. And I've always said to my father, I said, you know, you have been fortunate that you went from pure art to applied art, which was from pure art to architecture. And hence you've had the freedom. But people like us, like I started in my father's studio in interior architecture, I found that canvas very small after about 10 years. So I expanded it to architecture because I felt compelled to do it, much as he had done in his career. And then I found that I needed to flesh out that story further, and I added graphics to my portfolio. So it's always about the compulsion to tell a story. So I am not a very big talker about my work, and generally I feel that, you know, I like to step away once the job is over because actually my engagement with it is done. And then I can dream the next dream. So I'm going to present two things to you here. One is a project which was for, and I feel an applied art or applied field of expression, creativity, it must express or articulate what the client needs. So the client here had a 3,000 square yard plot in Hyderabad and wanted to build a landmark, timeless, classic home, but while being contemporary. And I took a lot of inspiration from Indo-Saracenic architecture. I've always felt the need for anything that I design to not be soullessly international. I feel a compulsion for it to be rooted in the culture and environment from which I come. So it covers about 30,000 square feet. And after that, for humor and for you to really understand what's been going on with me while we've all been in this lockdown phase, I've shown you about 10 slides which cover what I call COVID dreams. And it's a project that I dreamt up just for me during the period of COVID lockdown. So we'll play it now, and hopefully the pictures can then generate any questions. The audio is not playing properly, I think, but it's okay. Yeah, so this is Jashan Bagh. I basically name every project that I do. So I call this Jashan Bagh, since it was like for grand lifestyle. And like I said, it's based on 3,000 square yards and covers 30,000 square feet. That's the stairwell that you see. And this leads into the main living area. That's the living area. These are the two last mammoth artworks that my father did for this project.
Oh.
Wow.
He painted these at 93.
Oh my God.
Beautiful.
This is the passage. This is the entertainment area in the basement. This is the part of the master bedroom. This is COVID dreams. I think we're having audio issues. So this is based, conceptualized on about 5 acres of land, and has a covered area of about 30,000 square feet and a footprint of about 45,000.
Wow.
Is this in Delhi?
But it's conceptualized for that. It's a COVID dream.
Okay.
That is amazing. Whose house was that, the first one?
The first one is for a family from Dubai in Hyderabad.
Okay, absolutely amazing. Absolutely. They live in Hyderabad or they live in Dubai?
They live in Hyderabad.
What was your brief for that one? Did they give you any specific brief?
Actually, I was fortunate that the brief was basically more on functionality, and they wanted a mix of timeless and contemporary, So that was the brief. And then the rest, like I said, the brief is really just the beginning of the story. It's the first chapter, or it's the prologue. And from there you take it on and you dream the dream and let the dream itself further. And like, the man who went to sleep in the sun and dreamt that he was a cat, and when he woke up, he didn't know whether he was a man or a cat, so it's a bit like that.
But is this intentional? There seems to me, at least for me, a great sense of tranquility right through.
I'm very happy that you picked up on that, because for me, a sense of harmony and serenity are essential in everything that I do, because if even one thing is not harmonized, I feel a little disturbed, you know. So for me, serenity and harmony is essential.
Yeah, because that
And
comes through. Yeah, sorry.
And I find you can have that both with symmetry and with asymmetry, but because harmony is really about balance.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And did you brief, sorry to ask you this question, did you brief your brilliant, genius, legendary father on what you wanted him to make, or he just did it on create, or he created it on his own?
No, actually, the way it happened is I took the clients over to meet with my father. At that time, he was 92. And I said, you know, the only person he is willing to do any sort of, what should I say, art on order is if I ask him. And he only does that for my projects because I always want oversized art. And so I took them to meet him. And my father, of course, he was holding forth with all the stories and this and that. And they saw some of the work and they liked one of the works. They said, you know, we like this, and could we have something which is in this genre? So based on that, I had no idea. And a year later, he was very sick, and I thought that we were going to lose him last July. And I didn't want to ask him about paintings. And the moment he was out of intensive care, he tells me, you know, your work is done.
Wow.
So these two huge, they're 10 by 8, 10 feet by 8 feet, 2 canvases that he did. And we lost him earlier, about 2 months ago. And I feel so amazed that he was able to produce these at that time.
Yes, he's awesome. We have a lot of his fabulous masterpieces at home in Delhi. My whole family is a big fan.
I know your family very well.
We're all big fans of his, admirers and fans. Yeah, awesome. I don't want to ask all the questions.
Including
anybody else?
I just wanted to comment on the variation between the two projects. It's quite interesting, and it's quite a range. So it's a good thing to see.
Yeah,
actually, I have a lot more range, and I think it's better to, you know, because with over 30 years of telling stories, you should be able to tell multiple stories.
Absolutely.
Of different types. And there are things that are closer to yourself, and then there are things that are closer to other people. So it's a question of, are you writing for somebody or are you writing for yourself?
Well said.
But last question, why would you call anything to do with COVID a dream? Isn't it a nightmare?
I think you know, I am a, what should I say, a born Sheikh Chilli or a born optimist.
So am I.
So I feel in a way that the COVID period of lockdown has been a period in our lifetimes which will never come again, when the whole world is on a pause for 3 months. And while it brings, so while it brings positive as well as negative repercussions, I feel if I look at the positive is it gives you time to explore within yourself, and that which you need to retain and that which can fall away. So I think it's been a very, very introspective time which the universe has given to us.
Yeah, to reboot and to rethink and to rejuvenate. I agree with you 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so Vivek, over to you.
Okay, let's now see what Saket has to show us. I think Rahul's again playing it.
Rahul, can you play Suno Long, please? The first one. Who isn't concerned about the future of life on the planet and what this future will look like? How will we clean our air, grow our own food, recycle building materials, or just live happier and more balanced lives? How will we create structures that are more beautiful, functional, and individual using technology as a friendly medium? Recently, I was given the opportunity to test active eco-responsive concepts for future living in a house project on the outskirts of Mumbai named Suno. The core idea redefines the relationship between man, God, and nature in the situation of life today. In olden times, The temple existed inside an enclosed courtyard of the archetypal Indian house dating back to 5th century BC. But by pushing the temple out, a new porous zone appears between the house and the temple that returns the courtyard to nature and engages open and semi-covered space. The temple is now a sculptural element to be seen, felt, and touched all the time. The green roof absorbs the idea of the disappearing courtyard, bowing in respect to the temple and sloping in reference to any heavy rainfall it may receive. Suno is the start of an offering of a global portfolio of works to engage the tradition of the past and the innovation of the future. Tesla is known for innovation, thinking outside the box and literally redefining the idea of a car in every way, but from a technologically and yet friendly perspective. I feel that Suno checks off all those criteria as if they were applied to design and architecture. It is nothing short of an extraordinary and rare experience to come and speak at Salon del Mobile. It's an honor to be coming from India and yet be seen as an international designer. It's probably the first time an Indian designer was invited to speak at Fori Salone with Tesla and to showcase architecture, interiors, and furniture all at the same time, which is a very rare honor indeed. And switch to the next video. The second video is Suno by Shiva, and this is a continuity of the first video. It shows the project as it is today. Some 4 years ago, I met an incredible client who let me work on the future of my ideas. Sustainable, green, efficient, and stunning, all in a house she named Suno. The Suno archetype of the future could regulate nature, grow food, harvest its own rainwater, generate power, and regulate temperature. To create India's largest residential green roof was risky. What if nature didn't take to it? Or in one furious monsoon removed everything I set out to do?
Double strong. Got 2 whistles. Very strong.
Exactly a year ago, even before its completion, I spoke about Suno at Milan Design Week, about why projects like this are so incredibly important. Today, I'm happy to report that what was an idea in progress is now a fully fledged reality. Attracting scores of monarch butterflies and pollinating bees, Suno's green roof lowers the temperature in the house to where it can be used without air conditioning and fans. This project now sets the benchmark for all my future work and the next versions of Suno 2, 3, and 4 to fit a larger vision of a more accessible and sustainable future, especially after the trying times we live in today. Finally, the last video is the one which is about the next project I'm about to build, and it's the next generation of Suno.
That's amazing, absolutely amazing, Saket.
Thank you.
Amazing
No.
stuff.
I
This is
love the new gen even more.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, this is
I
own
found-
genius and hard work.
No, because I felt it was a combination museum feel along with a lot of, Indian elements, etc. And then was that like a garud? What you had, was that like a bird head?
Where?
Towards the end, one could see something on the green roof. Or was that just an illusion which I concocted?
Probably. But there are little cues of Indian and European things in the work. I mean, it's not manifest, but there's always something in my vocabulary that integrates that. It's not just, a modernist or a futurist vision.
Yeah, no, I saw the jalis and things that, and I thought it was gorgeous. It was just stunning.
Thank you.
Saket, with these beautiful big green roofs, which are brilliant to keep the temperatures down, they must take a lot of maintenance because, I mean, just a normal garden, you need tons of people here in the tropics, constantly weeding, cleaning. I mean, you have a lot of gardeners that go up there and keep it a certain way.
I mean, let's put it this way. It's nothing more than what you're already doing with a clever set of sprinklers and drains. And I think it's actually based on the design of what you're doing. The roof is aluminum, so it's fully recyclable. It's next generation. We actually were more worried about the green roof than maybe people like you are. But I was shocked at how well it took. When I suggested it to my client for the first time, and she went along with it, I was like, "Are you sure you want me to do this? Because once I build it, it's if it fails, it fails. There's nothing we can do about it."
Or if it leaks, it leaks. Yeah.
I mean, not even just the leakage. You see, at the end of the day, it's very complex because the nature has to hold it. Like whatever you're growing on the roof, whether it's grass or
depth.
Yeah. So, and you have one really shitty monsoon, or you have like a cyclone, and you worry about whether it's going to hold. But nature is quite interesting that way. I think if you build it, it will come. So it starts to develop its own rooting and it gets denser. It kind of meshes into the system that you already have and it gets stronger.
So how deep did it have to go? I mean, how deep did you have to have it?
It's about maybe 4 inches, really. That's about
that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's nothing.
Yeah, that's nothing.
So you have to be, so usually when you hand a project over, you just say, okay, here's the build structure and you leave. But in this kind of project, you come back season after season, just to make sure that you're doing okay. And I think now we're in the second season and we're really happy with the results. So I'm going to keep pushing forward. It was just a concept and now it's already a reality. And I started working on sustainable 4 years ago before anybody knew anything about it. And so I'm happy to be making progress in this particular area.
Is it in Alibag near Mumbai?
Actually, it's in Manor, but the second project is in Alibag. Yeah.
Okay.
And you said to your water harvesting and also generating power? Is that what I heard?
That's the next generation of the project. This generation of the project is just to make sure that it works. We wanted to make sure that nature works and we can lower the temperature. I think what is fantastic for places like Delhi, for example, where you have these really big houses and you have these huge air conditioning pots, having a green roof can lower the temperature by 4 or 5 degrees and you can cut your electricity bill by half. So I think this is really not very difficult to do. And I think anytime anybody tries to do something different, I think most times people just say, oh, it's got to be so difficult, and it'll leak or it'll crack. And these things do happen when you start something new. And that's why you pioneer something new and don't replicate it, And so we'll see. I mean, I think it's quite exciting. We'll see the next generation get more.
I think the technology is all fine. At my studio, we have a Champa courtyard on the second floor.
It's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. It was lovely. And what was that big egg-like structure? That was the temple. How did you get that iridescence? It was beautiful.
So we had, I had a special mosaic in mind because I was so humbled by this client. This is the first time I've met a client who has unlimited resources and is completely unaffected by it. And I just said that the universe should come to her, it should be just a moment of gratefulness. So the idea of the galaxy and the galaxy having a day and night and going on an egg, which is very primordial, right? It's a lingam at the end of the day. But it's also a lingam you can occupy and enter. And there's a lot of architectural theory, right from, the first Indian house with a courtyard. So what I did really is, all my projects will have that. There'll be some play of theory, there'll be some play of technology, and then there'll be some bits of particular context assimilation. And that's how we got it.
Good. Well done, Saket.
Thank you.
Yeah, superb. Saket, is a question from the audience asking about insects.
Yeah. So really interestingly, the first monsoon, we had a really bad infestation and we weren't prepared for it. And so we obviously had to bring in a landscape person and understand what was going on with that. But you see, the thing is, this is a new archetype. When you try doing something new, you don't know how it's going to work. We didn't know if birds or bees were going to come. But now it's under control. The second season is usually when it levels out. So it would be the same as any other lawn having any other infestation, I guess. But I think the thing you need to remember here is because it's an aluminum roof, it's not porous. It doesn't have the same kind of problems that other roofs have. So it's a impermeable barrier.
Saket, are you based in Delhi?
No, I'm in Mumbai actually.
You're in Mumbai actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a little bit off the grid, but I'm here.
Okay.
He has a home on Altamont Road, right next to Vivek.
Okay.
So, just the last question. Saket, why have you chosen Milano to kind of root yourself there for some part of the year? Is there any reason?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it happened by accident. For many years, I kept seeing designers and architects and magazine people going to Milan, and I always wanted to go, but for some reason, it never happened. And then when I was doing the last episode of Design HQ, I got an invite from the Spanish government to go to the Biennale in Venice. And so it was my first time going to the Biennale. And when I went to the Biennale, I was just kind of stunned by all this great work from all over the world. And it just so happened that Domus, which is a pretty famous architecture magazine, called me to Milan for an interview. And so my first trip to Milan, I just felt that there was a different level of design living. And I wanted to participate really. And it wasn't intentional. So when the first thing happened and the first trip happened, it led to the second trip and, went so on and so forth. I spoke at Politecnico, I spoke at Design Week, and I think it's a step-by-step progression. So yeah, that's how I landed up in Milan.
That's awesome. Okay, Vivek.
Okay, now to India's fashion guru.
Oh, poor thing.
Absolutely.
I really should have started this thing because it's not fair to put me after all these titles.
No. Like there's father of the nation, there's father of fashion.
But this India's fashion guru disregarded his Wharton degree, went back to FIT and returned to Delhi to set up his studio. And now the home has become his natural extension, where he and Bindu Vadera working together on various homes and projects around the country, doing homes in Goa and his flagship stores. His focus is quality, craftsmanship and style similar to his clothing lines. So we will now see a presentation from Tarun.
Well, I should have gone first. This is very hard to follow all of you. But I must tell you that I did try and become an architect, but back then, in the 80s, you had to take physics and chemistry, which I could understand. So I sort of went off in some other direction, and I guess water finds its way. And it's really after I did the first big Goa house, which got covered a lot, that there was interest in. I started working on different projects, and so I, went to Sri Lanka and studied a lot of Jeffrey's work. We went to Bali, we went to all the different places working with hotels, and I've just kind of learned on the job. So I'm quickly going to show you just a few slides of some of two of the Goa houses and the process in this house that's going to break ground in Delhi, which I think for us is the most exciting new thing, because I guess everybody's been working towards, being sustained, sustaining the environment, how to keep things cool. There's a lot of discussion on some of these families don't even want to use air conditioners in summer. I mean, that they feel that they just want to be in nature. So I'll show you how this has to be designed. I'm not the architect. I work on these two some people do it. And so we work as a team because I mean, we're not qualified to make these kind of drawings, or they have a different education and vision. So can we just start? You'll have to just keep moving the slides. There's no music with this. I'll just talk over. So this was the first house we did in Goa, which I did with Arvind D'Souza, and it was all in situ. This is about 15 years back, and it was overlooking some backwaters. It was all very natural and cement, and it had this sort of Jeffrey Baba courtyard in the middle. And we then did many different projects there. And the last project we did, next slide, please. You can just flip them a little faster, is the glass villa,
Nice.
which just got ready. And it's been done again with Sameep. It's these incredibly high glazings done with AIS, the glass company. And basically, it's all solar reflective glass. And even in the bedrooms, we've got some of the trees growing through the master bedrooms in these glass columns. So it's very organic. This was taken while it was still being finished. There's this big infinity pool overlooking, one of the backwaters, these courtyards. And of course, I mean, that living room is 23 foot high. And there's just lots of light, lots of shadow. And now the main thing for my projects is also the gardens, but that takes more time. So all of the bedrooms have these shafts. And, even though they are vertically, everything is green. And of course, Sameep and I always fight about these very expensive roofs, which he's obsessing about. And but only the birds are going to see it, We can't spend 3 extra crores because you want the shape. But anyway, there obviously seems to be something with all you new architects, new age architects, these wonderful roofs. Anyway, go on. So this next thing is something we're just about to break into. And while we were working with these people, our process with this family, they were unusual. They lived very differently. They're vegetarian. Their temple was very important. They wanted things to be organic. They kept saying it has to be a zero carbon footprint, which of course is not possible. And it's a main house. It has an extension with the formal living. And then you come into certain areas. Eventually, the two sons will have their own houses up there. And the program for this house was that each room came out with glass on 3 sides. And eventually when the gardens are done, it's going to be fully like living in some kind of, tropical garden. And there's one glass box out where they can sit and eat or, entertain. And there are these old, beautiful doors and facades that have been picked up in Rajasthan, which will sit in glass, but again, fully covered. So it's going to look like this slightly crazy forest with these, each program, each bedroom, everything is sticking out, and it'll be fully, so everything has 2 courtyards, no 2 rooms touch each other. So there's lots of cross ventilation, and everything's been calculated, what windows you need to, what the angle of the sun is. And so we will now we will break ground. It has microforests. It has no swimming pools because I thought it was too much of a waste, but giant bioponds, which will regenerate around which some of these pools, like that's not a swimming pool, that's a biopond. And here, very high ceilings. Everything looks into the garden. And the brief was when we're in our rooms, we want to just feel like we're in a cave with greenery coming out. So this is something we're going to start now. And I mean, these are just a few of what it interesting. I mean, it's a lot more work and it's more expensive to build, but that's the direction that we're going in now. We actually do a bit of work with, the stores. We worked on 1 or 2 hotels, always with architects and, primarily architects because we're not qualified to do this. And it's nice, it's collaborative. I bring something, they bring something, we bring our textures, fabrics, colors. We principally use a lot of Indian stone. I mean, there are some projects with a lot of Italian. But when I came to Delhi, I just found all these farmhouses full of Italian onyx. And I was like, oh my God, where am I? Big glass glazings, bad acoustics, because the rooms were so tinny because of, all the stone and glass. And I was at the retreat in Ahmedabad, and in one of these old Corbusier cement houses, which one of the Sarabhais lived. It was all cement. It had beautiful pitchwise. It had Rauschenbergs. And as we sat to lunch, everything was open. Peacocks came in and out. They just wandered through the garden. And I thought, we've definitely lost something. This is something that I learned in fashion after traveling around. So we're trying actually to go backwards. Not that we don't have any problem with technology, but we're trying to bring something of this Indian life back, or sensitivity, because I feel with everyone running to Italy and coming back, and I see all these ostrich feather lamps and the big mansions that I go to in Delhi, I'm unable to relate to it and what it means to be Indian. And our whole thing is, what is India model? And that's where we continue to experiment with.
Tarun, wonderful. I wish you all the luck, and you encourage architects to sort of define or establish the idiom of the Indian contemporary architecture.
I mean, that's what I think. Because,
that's the need,
Yeah. I'm coming to see you when I come to Bombay. I'm coming to
most
see
certainly.
you.
Most certainly. Vinod worked with me. He's very close to you and Tina.
Yes.
And he's a wonderful designer. So we'll connect for sure.
Okay, lovely.
Tarun, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I'm really amazed that you had all these really far-sighted clients with so much of vision. Did they brief you specifically to bring nature into your home, or was it your idea to them and then they agreed?
Well, it's both, because they also come to my house. My house is like a jungle. When I moved to Delhi and I built this house, I remember driving around with this horticulturist, and he kept looking at me and saying, so Mrs. Munjal got an 8 lakh tree. And I said, are you crazy? This is 20 years back, 8 lakhs on a tree. You're nuts. And I'm pointing out the kikar and the sarkanda, the wild grasses. And finally said, "Aap to horticulture ki kuch pasand nahi kar rahe." And he got out of the car and left. So I got Manju Bawa to help me. And I think tropical gardens, they're so lush and beautiful. You don't need to be in Singapore, even in Delhi. There's beautiful wild indigenous things, but you have to plant them and let them grow and find their way. There's only so much you can do by transplanting, because then you kind of plant to the shape, and there's a certain organic way things grow. And in fact, for the first anniversary of Architectural Digest, they had the gardens on the cover, because it's such a rambling, thing, and everything comes into flower. So I mean, that's very much a big part of what we do. Because if you're living in these beautiful homes and everything looks out, the garden is your art. And at night you light it, it's beautiful, and in the day it's beautiful. It's always spectacular.
I feel, Tarun, landscape is a very fine art, and it's more difficult, I find, than architecture, because you're dealing on design with living organism.
Yeah.
And finally, when you can't get what you want from the landscape architects, you learn to do it yourself, like Jeffrey did. Exactly. Jeffrey defined all his landscapes himself. He couldn't get somebody to do it for him. So, one might land up that way.
Yeah, so every time I go into, Lunu Ganga and all, there's this incredible sense of tranquility and all.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to create,
Absolutely. We are in the same tropical zone. And what beats me is, why have we lost our balance? We are living still, whether it's Bombay, Goa, Delhi, we are still in the tropics. Why is our architecture so alien? Why is our architecture, the new architecture, so alien to us? It's not solving any problem.
Well, I want to tell you, I studied the Dune School. And in the Dune School, even in May, which was 43 degrees, we wore 100% woolen stockings with garters, because that's what they did in Scotland. Nobody has stopped to think for a minute. In the monsoon, we played, it's dark. We still have all this colonial, legacies. And I think when you speak someone else's language, then you tend to learn more from there, because your literature so much comes from there. And I think now the new generation have to start re-engaging with India as it is today.
Tarun, something has happened to our design sensibilities, architecture and cityscape in the last 30, 40 years. What Lutyens did in Delhi, was still sensible. It was sensible. It fitted the site. It fitted the climate. You had those tall ceilings. You had the courtyard. You had the verandas. We lost them. We got too commercial.
Yeah,
in fact, what have we done? We've just aped the West. We've done glazing after triple glazing, single glazing, double glazing.
We don't have
the shadows, and you create a problem. The architects create the problem. Then they try to solve the problem. It just costs the environment, costs the client money, and everybody is unhappy.
And it's not good for the environment. I'm telling you, with this house, in April and early May, there were parts in May where we sat on the day with no AC on it. Delhi's hot. But because it's designed to cross-ventilate, and there are trees all around, it was beautiful.
While we don't want to talk about COVID, there is a notification that buildings which are sealed with fixed windows and central air conditioning are absolutely unhealthy. So in buildings in Delhi, I'm opening up fixed glass to let natural air get in.
They're not letting the air conditioning on. How can you people work in 45-degree weather in a classroom?
Well, so I told them with ventilation, I give you 30 degrees, but I mean, you want to die? So these are things, which have to be addressed now.
So I don't think there's enough functional thought about what we need here in our climate, and the design must work around that.
Right.
I think that's the best thing.
No, it's not just the functional aspect. I feel one is function, and is two, what is culturally moves our souls. We are becoming soulless because we are becoming like everybody else, and we have such a strong sense of or a strong cultural history. And without that, we are actually anonymous. So until we celebrate that, we celebrate that in our architecture, we celebrate that in our fashion.
Rasil, we value it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
you have to value it.
You value it, and you don't just value it in a museum, you value it by integrating it into your life.
Yes, into your life.
So I think that is what is something we need to go full circle now. We've gone the full American direction, and I think we need to come back.
Enough of Trump. Let's come back here.
That's the Trump card.
Exactly. Your Trump card.
Trump. Please don't mention Trump.
Okay.
Oh.
But Tarun, you went to the wrong school. You should have gone to Mayo College. Then you would have been okay.
I did get in there once. I went to see it. It was 45 degrees. I said, no, I'm going to do it. It's too hot.
But you were wearing stockings.
Yeah, well. It wasn't enough Rajvada. Obviously, you're from Mayo.
I'm from Mayo. Rasil's brother is from Mayo.
I went to Wellams like your sister.
I saw Rasil when she was in school. I met you when you were in school, Rasil, with Pia.
Sorry?
I met you when you were in Wellams.
That's right, when you were the debate king.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you all can't imagine how skinny Tarun was. He was like a stick.
He's still very skinny.
I love you, Rashmi.
Yeah, look at him. Still. Okay, listen, we have a lot of questions. Sorry.
Okay, hurry up.
Should we take the question at the end and after we finish what we have to hear from Rashmi?
You're just forcing me to say things, Vivek. See, the thing is, he's pulled me here kicking and screaming, and just because he's been good to me, my husband, my father-in-law, and everybody, I can't refuse this man. Okay, he's from Mayo, I'm from Sofia, by the way. Sophia at the same time. And so, okay, so what do you want me to say? You want me to talk a little bit about the restaurant thing?
Yes, and the design aspect of the restaurant, the best restaurant in the world.
No, see, I have a lot of restaurant questions to ask all of you, which I'm not going to do because it takes away from the most amazing work each of you have been doing, is doing, and continues to do, right? So basically, I just wanted to share this because Vivek told me this afternoon, this is what I need to do. So I'm just going to do it really quickly, like in literally 2 minutes. My restaurant experience, one of the most amazing restaurant experiences I have had has been, believe it or not, in Shanghai. It's called UV by Paul Perret. UV stands for ultraviolet. And it is the most amazing experience even from the point of view of design in some ways. That's why I'm going to quickly tell you about it. And then we'll request Anika to show the slides really in super fast speed. This restaurant is in Shanghai. It seats only 20 people, 20, and it costs roughly around $1,000 a head. And of course, it's booked up forever. It's run by a French chef. What you do is once you get a booking, You go to one of his own restaurants by the Bund, where they give you a flute of champagne, and then begins the mystery. They bundle you into a bus and take you to an unknown gully somewhere, and then you stop, and there's this closed door. There's a woman sweeping outside. You go into the closed door and into this large, dark room with a large, dark table, and 20 of us sat around it, and then boom, it's a multi-sensorial experience. There is music, there is light, there is drama, there is film, there's theater, and of course there's a lot, and there is the room next door. There are a lot of elements of design which come in, but on the whole, it is a mind-blowing experience. And of course, the most important thing is that the food tastes good. I mean, the drama is brilliant.
So.
What?
I should have hoped so for $1,000. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. No, see, a lot of times you think it may be just gimmicks or, acting, but it's all your senses are engaged, immersed. It's mind-blowing. So I'm going to request Anika just to quickly show in the next few seconds the slides, because I don't think I want to go into design of other restaurants. Okay, go.
Nice.
So that's the table, and that's all around, okay, the different movies, film which come on. You can move to the next one. And the different drama, the French chef and his team are in a closed, like in an open kitchen window. And the chefs come forward, serve stuff. I'll give you only one example, which is the next one, which is the picnic scene, okay? Which is here. See, just stop this here for a minute. This is the last one. When this picnic course comes on, there are like 15 or 20 courses. Suddenly, grass sprouts on the table. Picnic baskets are served, and each basket has the most amazing food in it. And it's a completely fabulously memorable experience. And there's also the 2-3 these, by the way, because Vivek told me this afternoon, we grabbed these from the Instagram of the restaurant. Okay, so that's why they're so amateurish, all these things. But the thing is that this experience is completely mind-blowing. I've been to the world's best restaurants, and because I happen to be the chairperson of the Indian subcontinent for 16 years for the world's 50 best restaurant academy. So I have some amazing experiences to share, but I thought this would be the most unique. That's the French chef, Paul Perret. Okay, we're done with the slides now. Okay, let's take questions now for all the geniuses.
I don't have a question. I just think it's such an amazingly fabulous concept.
Yeah, fantastic.
I mean, it is truly, immersive theatrical experience.
Yeah.
So, Rashmi, were these on LEDs or were they back projections? Were these LED walls which all this was happening on?
Possibly,
or
yes.
were they back projections?
Back projection is a lot of space. Yeah, perhaps back projection for that size, Tarun.
It's too
because LEDs also become very harsh.
I think. Huh? I think it had to be LED, no? Because it's so seamless.
Yeah, it was amazing, and it changes like every few days. So it's not the same experience when you go back. And even their staff, they're all like theatrical fellows. They'll drop a plate by say, "Oh, sorry," and the other guy will pick it up. It's all choreographed. It's like fun. It's witty. Yeah, it's witty. It's fabulous. Yeah, it's fab. It's amazing. It's amazing. And there's a lot of technology, lots of technology.
No, it's purely drama and technology.
Yeah, and there's also like kind of smells which are piped in. Like you're going for a walk, so they'll show, for example, some woods You can actually smell pine trees, and and there's wind which blows by, and it's unbelievable.
Sounds just stunning.
Sounds fabulous.
You're a food critic, and quite
Yes.
honestly, I barely ever go out to eat, and the only reason I would want to ever go out is just for the ambience than anything else. So for me, even if the food wasn't good, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah. But that's a whole fabulous subject, about the ambience, whether it should be creative, conceptual, thematic, or should just be comfortable, should be both, blah, blah, and blah. So, okay, so let's take questions. Anybody, please send your questions for this eminent, shiningly brilliant panel. Vivek, where are the questions going to pop up?
Yeah, Anika has them from the audience. She'll ask them on behalf of the audience.
Yeah, Anika, please ask, but I can't see them.
So the first question I'm going to ask Tarun, because we have lots of people asking Tarun to please talk about his fashion business as well, since he's spoken about his housing business.
That's not relevant here.
Okay,
They
sure.
want me to talk about the fashion business, but that's not what this panel's about.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. A couple of minutes on that would be great.
Yes, please.
People would love to it.
Well, I started, as it was mentioned, at 87, because we found it odd when we moved back, my wife and me, that we'd see beautiful things made in India that were sold abroad, and we couldn't find them in India. And everyone in India shopped in this export reject fashion street sort of thing, and there was no proper retail. So we started contacting a lot of these people and saying, don't you think if you make these beautiful things, then it should be shown to Indians first? I mean, it can't be that you get the rejects in India and you buy. And that was one of the things that started the fashion. And we worked with many great designers who, every designer in India has been to also doors. And then I decided I really wanted to design myself. As much as I couldn't do architecture now, but I couldn't do design of clothes without understanding how to cut and drape. Because Indian master Gs didn't know how to do it either. They came from a clothing tradition of draping fabric and very basic shades. So I went back to study at FIT and learned in a very difficult course for a year, literally 8 a.m. to midnight every day, how to do, some of the things. And then I came back and set up the studio in Delhi because I felt that Delhi was more Indian. It had summer, winter. It was more the fashion capital, and it wasn't that Bollywood obsessed back then, at least, It had a greater sense of Indian style. And, the Fashion Design Council began here. We started showing. And, it's too broad a subject to speak on. But fashion has taught me India, and I'm using that same route to learn in architecture and interiors how Indian things can be adapted and modernized. I think that's the most important thing I would like to say. That's, you study abroad, but then you come and see how it applies to you and your environment and what you do.
We have one student who is currently studying fashion design, and she's saying that she's also kind of looked into architecture before and wanted to get an idea from you how you switched from design to architecture, because she's looking to do something similar.
I haven't switched. I'm not an architect. I said that. So I work with wonderful architects. We do we brainstorm, we think, we put mood boards, but we don't work with architects. I think they're different professions. You can work in both, but you have to train for one or the other. That would be my suggestion. So she has to see what she likes more, what she feels more passionate about. But my friend said, architecture is literature and stone, it lasts forever. And fast fashion is so fast it's gone, although it might change now. So architecture definitely has more longevity, I think.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Ayushi Ratan. She asks, after this pandemic, the need of buildings with more ventilation and more plantations is the need, right? How can sustainability be incorporated into the upcoming or prevalent buildings in the cities, especially Mumbai and Delhi?
I could take that. I'll take that. I'll take that. We have to... there'll be a paradigm change in the approach to buildings, I feel. If we are going to be honest with ourselves and really address a problem, and that will also require policy change. Policy change in terms of regulations, in terms of built-up areas. Where is the problem? You know, we had buildings on Marine Drive and elsewhere which had balconies. Those were eaten up when there was a pressure on floor space. We have to look at policy, we have to look at bylaws and, do things in a sensible manner. What we need is not smart cities. Now they're talking about smart villages. We're talking of making smart cities. Forget the smart city. Now you're talking of smart. The villages are smarter than you. So what we need to build is we need to build sensible. We need to build sensible. You may talk about sustainability. My brief to the chaps who service me is very simple. Can you do this building and run it in 2 watts per square foot instead of 15 watts of electricity per square foot? That is the simple answer. If they answer yes, then they can do it. So yes, to answer your question, cross ventilation, very important. Shading of buildings, extremely important. And, of course, we are living in a polluted atmosphere, but at least a lot of plantation and greenery. And what is happening is Bombay has the lowest open space per capita in the world. We need to build tall and we need to free up land for open spaces. That's the answer.
How do you shade tall? How do you shade a tall building, Alfaz?
I would say tall means if you go 40 stories, but leave enough land mass around to put up gardens. Yeah. There's no playgrounds. Everything is internal. You have got projects coming up at Worli where there are ice skating rings inside.
Can we talk about for a minute that if it's not based on policy, for example, things that we can do. On my show, when I did Design HQ, we had an episode with Dia Mirza. And it was a really simple story about how everybody who had planters could return a piece of the ecosystem to a well-developed planter by just choosing vegetation and changing the temperature pattern outside their window. And I think also if you look at the example of Paris, right, when Paris just passed this law saying that every building should ideally either have solar or a green roof, that's easy to implement. But what I'm saying here is if policymakers decide not to do that, you can still do that at an individual or community level. And I think that's what the dialogue should be about.
Saket, I agree with you. But if that planter which you're putting in is going to go out of the square foot of your built up area, which costs ₹1 lakh a square foot. So the incentive to do that planter is not there. If it came free of FSI or free of your built up area, then there would be, it should be made mandatory to have projections and not count them in FSI and then ensure that they don't get misused, I mean,
I guess what I'm saying is that
I know.
Let's say it doesn't happen, but let's say now you have a window, you don't even have a chaja,
Yeah, I know.
Start with your window. And I think that's where the dialogue needs to be, because like this will never get off the ground if we wait for policymakers to come to that. But I think that you can adapt policy that is happening globally or is happening on a sustainable level in small ways into your life.
We don't have design. We have bylaws. We don't have design guidelines. We don't have design guidelines in this country where there is so much development going on. You go see a master plan of a small township happening or a development happening. Apart from the bylaws, there are design guidelines which take into account the environment, the lifestyle, the culture, everything. We don't have design guidelines.
I guess that's precisely why we're having this discussion. I mean,
yes, we are.
What we can do at an individual level is what we're left to. I mean, even now, if you look at the response to COVID, it's based on what you can do for yourself, So it's that time. Anyways, but it's a nice discussion to have.
It's a nice discussion, and this is a wake-up call. Like Rasil said, time for retrospection, introspection. Where do we want to go from here? We have to seriously look at.
And what we will do is that I will invite all of you home whenever you guys are in town and have a continued panel discussion on this.
Sounds great.
That's great.
If you're on Oldmount Road, you're next door because I'm on Carmichael Road.
Yeah, I'm at Olympus.
That's next door.
Yeah.
That's next door.
All right.
All right.
Moving to the next question. Design has a lot to do with execution. How do you ensure good execution?
I'll take that, shall I? Because, designers are meant to do a job, and there's a shortcut which is taken here. Design has to be thought out and detailed, and the designer must be given sufficient time to design and sufficient time to make an execution package. When it gets passed on, and if there is a process of intermediate approvals, that when it goes into execution, it's sufficiently detailed, then things go well. How was Dubai built? It's the same architects. See the kind of packaging they do to the design, detailing and engineering, which is lacking. It is lacking because we are poorly paid as designers. And not enough time is given to package the design and engineering well. That's what I would like to say. So first do that bit well, then it will get executed well.
I'd like to add to that. And what I'd like to say is that regardless of what one gets paid, sometimes well, sometimes not so well, and sometimes not at all, right? When your clients disappear with the fees. But I think if you are compulsively
responsible,
you have the compulsive integrity to package and deliver an engineered project where every detail has been thought about in conjunction with each other, not in piecemeal, not okay, today I'll design the plan and tomorrow I'll design the air conditioning and day after I will design the elevation and post that I will design the green spaces or the hardscape. I think it all has to be taken in as one package, as one thought process, with full complete drawings delivered, and then you start the project and you don't take your eye off that ball. I think that's the only way to deliver quality.
I agree with you. And since we are on a public forum, I'd like to say that, you know, between your design education and your training to be able to execute, there is a gap. There is a time lag. So I would suggest that, you know, people who come in from a design background have to be mentored and trained by people who are used to execution, learn the skill sets, and then fly on your own.
No, true. That is why you are, I mean, you know, you're in a very responsible position. And your team is in fact, it's your job to ensure that your team follows or is educated in the ethics that you have learned through experience. So I think that is the responsibility that lies with all of us.
Right.
You know?
Okay, we'll take one last question because this has gone on for almost
2 hours.
2 hours. I've never had talks. I mean, the talk going on was so long. I think everybody's really been enjoying it, but I think we'll have to take one last question and then we'll call it a day. Anika.
So this is a combination of 2 questions. How do you all craft a story? How do you personalize and customize a design for your end user?
Let each of us answer that. Let each of us say a few things on this.
I couldn't hear the question. You faded out. Sorry.
I said I think I spoke on that earlier, so others should speak on this. Same.
The question was, as a designer, how do you craft a story and how do you personalize and customize design for the end user?
I'd like to say something.
Please.
First, you have to be you have to reach a stage where you're the prima donna of design. Your client should be zapped by you. He should not question you. He should not question you. You're God.
I'm good at zapping.
You're very good. So you have to be God to be able to do an honest job. That's the first thing. And once you've done that, then you can weave your story around your architecture and your experiences. But that's prerequisite. I mean, if people steamroll over you or do not give you enough respect for your art, then you don't get a good product. Because I can explain only that much. I can analyze a plan, talk about functionality only to that extent. Beyond that, there's that final thing which is in my brain, and my heart, which I can't explain.
Saket, all yours.
Yeah, it's a complex question because, you know, as you move from client to client, the approaches change. I mean, for me, it's contextual, right? So I'm always trying to psychoanalyze what the client is and what they're doing and what's coming off the site and what is the aspiration. And So it really, and I think eventually it just goes to a point where it's a dream state. You know, you have a fuzzy vision of what this project looks like, and it's giving you some psycho feedback where you feel like, wow, this is really what I think this client needs, and then you kind of work backwards. So I don't know if I'm answering this question correctly, but I think that there's going to be a specific approach for each client. Sometimes it's iterative. Sometimes it's dictatorial, as Alpha says, and I sometimes do go into a project and I say, listen, this is it. You know, this is what I want to build for you. And sometimes it's extremely sensitive. You know, I'm trying to understand why they want what they want, and sometimes it does guide that process. So it just depends.
Tarun.
I think that both in fashion and in this, you've got to know your story. I mean, and I don't think it's that possible to get too far from that. And I think, you know, that not only are you refining your own story, but you're also evolving and you know the experience out of which you're building the story. So, for instance, just looking at what I've seen today, if I wanted to do some French Renaissance-looking thing, I probably wouldn't ask Saki to do it. It's not his style. And if I came to him and said to them, it'd be perfectly right to say, I don't do this. I mean, once a woman came to me and she described an outfit, and I said, "You're describing Suneet Verma." And I dialed him and said, "Yeah, make an appointment." And
That sounds so familiar, Tarun.
you know, and I said, "Just go. You'll be much happier. Don't
Yeah.
bang, bang, bang." And she had an appointment. Okay. So, you know, it's always, you got to be honest. If someone comes to you, I always take 1 or 2 meetings, see if you even got a vibe, you know, and you think about the same thing. I'm always happy to do a mood board to see if we're on the wavelength. Because if it's not, you know, I'm doing too many jobs. I don't have time to put myself, it doesn't, what for? You know, I want to better what I think I do, so. But when I want that French Renaissance mansion, I'm coming to you, Saket.
I'll do it. You'll be surprised.
With a different twist.
With a green roof.
Your interpretation of it with a green roof.
Okay, I now hand the floor over to Rashmi to sum it all up, and then we wind it up. Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you, Vivek. I'm so happy you brought me here kicking and screaming, because I really enjoyed every little moment of learning from these great guys and seeing what amazing inspirational work each and every one of them is doing. Starting with the gorgeous, lovely, beautiful young lady and her tranquil, fabulous hope. I love the fact that you're optimistic and it's amazing. Thank you. And thank you. Yes, lovely. And Alfaz, I've been a big time admirer of the airport and your work. And I'm so happy to see that Parde Ke Piche Kya Hai. Thank you for unveiling Parde Ke Piche Kya Hai. And Tarun, the king of couture, we didn't ask you Choli Ki Piche Kya Hai. But we full-time admirer of yours. And
I would have given you a full demo, but anyway, I'm not in the same room as you, but next time.
Yes. Next time we'll do another one. But thank you again. And of course, Saki, to come back to you and your beautiful, brilliant, genius work, which has nothing to do with my getting to know you when you just started. It's your own genius.
Oh, come on, please.
Yeah. So let's have a big hand for each and every one of our brilliant panelists here. Big hand.
Thank you. And bye-bye. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you.
This was wonderful. Anika, Rahul, Vivek, thank you very much.
Thank you all so much for coming on. Thank you so
and
much.
Anika, thank you for all the wonderful work you've been doing, Parde Ke Piche. I also have to tell you guys, there have been some amazing questions coming in. I couldn't follow them very bad with all the Zoom, boom, and all that. But from Priya Patyan, from Vishal, Kanchan, I've been seeing them, but I didn't know how to catch hold of them and raise them to you. I'm going to learn slowly. Thank you. And finally, Vivek, the Talwar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a great thing to getting everyone together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.